Hello friends, my name is Dr. Jyoti Prakash and I am Assistant Professor in the Department of Management, School of Management Sciences, Lucknow. Now welcome you all to the video lecture that is based on the topic compensation management. In earlier videos, I have explained the basic concepts of compensation and the types of compensation, and I have also discussed about the different components of a salary structure. Means whenever if you join some organization and if you get a salary slip, so you just get an understanding what are the elements come under your compensation aspect that you are getting from an organization. So, in this video lecture basically the discussions totally based on the like factors, what are the factors which somehow helps the human resource manager or the organization in determining the compensation and the recent trends in compensation management. So, just start the discussion on these issues related to compensation management. Before moving forward, I would like to make your attention towards the concept that is compensation. So, compensation we have discussed earlier that it is as the overall benefits in terms of monetary or non-monetary received by an employee and provided by an employer for providing services to his employer. Means if an employee, if being an employee, if you are working in some organization, so whatever services and whatever contribution you are giving to the organization in return, what amount or what benefit you are getting from the organization, that is all about compensation. And another expert related to HR field, that is Dale Yoder, defined that compensation is paying people for work. Means obviously in simple meaning anyone can understand that what can be the meaning or what is the meaning of compensation. It is all about the paying of people, means all those people who are working in the organization. So, organization just think about the compensation aspect, means what amount or what benefits should be given to them, so that they just maintain their productivity and efforts in helping the organization in achieving the goals or the objectives. And we have also discussed earlier that compensation can be in the form of cash or kind, and compensation may be defined as the money received in the performance of work plus the many kinds of benefits and services that organization provides to their employees. Means the word, if you say or if you just pronounce the word compensation, means the simply thing come or simply word or simply meaning come into your mind, that is all about the benefits or the money aspect. But in totality we can just understand that compensation is all about the combination of money that you are getting from the organization along with the services and the benefits that that organization is giving to you in return of your efforts or in return of your services and contribution that you are giving in the organization. So, compensation, we can say that we have understood very well this particular concept, that compensation is what? Compensation is all about the benefit either in monetary or non-monetary and the other services provided by the employer in return of the services given or contributed by the employee. Compensation is in this way. So, the next question obviously come into your minds that what are the factors which somehow helps the organization or the human resource manager that deciding the compensation aspect for the employee. So, what are the factors affecting employee compensation? So, there are basically two factors. We can say that the first one is internal and the second one is external factors. So, the first factor is like internal factor is ability to pay, means it is somehow related to the organization, how the pocket or how the pocket of the organization is allowing to pay for the efforts of the employees. Means whatever the affordable capability or the paying capability of the organization, that basically helps the organization in determining the compensation, means how much amount they will determine in paying compensation to employees they are working in the organization. The second one is business strategy. Obviously, it is also the internal factor, and the business strategy is like what the organization wants to achieve. The organization wants to portray a good image into the mind of the general public, or the organization basically want to survive and want to achieve greater productivity with the scarce limited of we can say that limited factor of production or limited resources. So, whatever the strategy of the company, as per that they just decide or they just take decision regarding compensating the efforts of the employees. The third one is job evaluation. Job evaluation we have discussed earlier in one video totally based on job evaluation, in which we have seen that the definition of job evaluation and the methods and the process. So, job evaluation in totality and in a nutshell we can understood that job evaluation is all about a function or a process of determining the worth of a job, and how this is possible and how this will be done by the human resource manager or by the organization. Firstly, they just determine which job is to be evaluated, means which job is the worth of which job is to be fixed out or determined. According to that, they just decide the job description and job specification. Means if we talk about a job, so obviously that job requires certain needs certain duties and responsibilities, and also requires some qualification and some sort of experience, so that any individual or any potential candidate can perform that particular job. So, job evaluation basically is being done by keeping consideration the two important elements like job description and job specification, means which type of duties and responsibilities one individual has to perform if that individual will be assigned that particular job, and what skill set and what educational qualification and what type of experience that should be possessed by an individual in order to perform that particular job. So, either the higher the roles and responsibility, means the complexity, the complex the job is, means that job requires obviously the more remuneration and compensation by the organization, and less complexity and the easier work basically requires less compensation, or we can say that the organization can take decision that they have to pay less amount to those individual whose work is not so harder and does not require so much of complexity. So, job evaluation by keeping consideration or by taking care of those two important elements like the duties and responsibilities and the skill set, that helps the human resource manager or the organization in fixing the worth of a particular job. So, whatever the worth derived after going through the evaluation process, or after going through after using the methods of job evaluation, whatever the amount that get, that will basically helps the human resource manager or the organization is determining the compensation aspect of for the employees. The next one is performance appraisal. Obviously, it is also one of the element that is related to the organization. So, it comes under the internal factors. So, performance appraisal is like, means what appraisal policy of a organization is, means the organization basically introduces or gives appraisal to its employees on annual basis or regular basis. So, if there is a policy to appraise the performance of the employees, so that should also be taken care of while determining the compensation aspect for the employees. And obviously, the last one is employees is one, or we can say that it is that individual who has been hired by the organization after going through the selection process and after publishing the recruitment policy of the organization. Means if a potential candidate is found suitable by the human resource manager, obviously he or she will be brought to the organization for obviously fulfillment of the achievement of the objective of the organization or the goal of the organization. So, how is the individual, means how expert, how competent, how intelligent or how versatile that employee is or that individual is, according to that compensation is being determined. Like in our scenario, we have seen various individual, and that they are talking about that there is a negotiation done, means while fixing the salary between the employer and the employee, there is a negotiation done, and how and on what basis this particular negotiation is done, on the basis of the employee himself or herself. Obviously, if I have been hired, after going through the selection process, if I have been selected by the organization, so obviously the next step or the next action will be what? Obviously, the fixing the remuneration and the compensation that I will get after rendering or after giving my services in the organization. So, if I am having so much or I can say that I have many year of experience and I have done so many certificate courses, and I have done the adequate or the appropriate degree courses or the post graduate courses. So, if the organization finds that I am competent enough, and if I will be brought into the organization, I will do miracle, or I can obviously help, I will help the organization in attainment of the goal or attainment of the objective. So, the level of skill set and the level of experience that I have, on the basis of that, it may happen that I will get more amount or more compensation as comparison to other employees or other new hired one, because I am that competency and I have that different skill apart different skill from others, and which makes me some different and some unique among all of the available selected candidates. So, obviously, in the employee himself or herself has the human resource manager or the organization in determining or in fixing the compensation aspect for the services that that employee will give in the organization. So, these are some of the internal factors, like ability to pay means the pocket of how much the pocket is allowing to the company, that company will give to the employees in return of the services that they are providing in form of compensation. So, that is obviously one of the factor. The business strategy, what the business goal, what the objective or what the goal of the organization is carrying right now, on that basis basically the compensation structure or the amount of compensation is being determined. The job evaluation, obviously the worth of that job and how this particular worth is being evaluated or fixed out by keeping consideration the duties and responsibilities and the skill set required, means the high complex the job, obviously that job requires more compensation by the employer. And the performance appraisal means if there is a policy to appraise the performance of good performer. So, obviously the organization should think about the compensation structure before fixing or determining the compensation part for the employees. So, they should also be taken care of by the human resource manager or by the organization, and the employee himself or herself means how competent, how expert, how intelligent, how conceptual, how analytical that individual is. So, according to that individual, the compensation structure will be determined. So, these are basically some of the internal factors. So, obviously, if there are internal factors, so there are also some external factors. So, what are those external factors? The first one is labor market, the second one is going rate, productivity, cost of living and labor union. So, just have a discussion one by one on these factors. Like labor market, it is totally based on the concept like demand and supply. You must have studied in your earlier subjects and earlier semesters. Like if the demand is high, if the supply is high, means there are more number of like post graduates available in the market. So, obviously supply is high, so obviously demand will be low, and the demand will be low, and if because the demand is low, because the organization is having so much of options, so obviously the compensation structure will be low, because they are having different alternatives and different options nowadays because of the availability or because of high supply of a particular course or a particular professional into the market. Means if the supply is high, so obviously demand will be low, and if demand is low, so obviously compensation structure will also be low. Means if the supply is basically low, so obviously demand will be high, because they are not the organization basically find difficulty in finding the competent or the eligible candidates out of the market. So, if they find some of the persons or some of the potential candidates that they are suitable, so obviously they will give whatever the expectation of those employees and those potential candidates, and they will obviously just love to give the higher level of compensation to them. So, labor market is all about giving a picture about based on two important elements like demand and supply, and whatever the situation of a supply and whatever the situation of a demand, according to that a human resource manager basically fix out the compensation structure and the compensation amount for an employee or for employees working in the organization. The second one is going rate. The name itself refers, what does it mean, like what is the rate prevailing in a scenario or prevailing in the industry. Suppose if I am working in an automobile company, so and I have been hired on the post of a general manager. So, what other general manager means what other companies are paying to the same post, that is general manager. So, if the company is going to fix the compensation structure, the compensation amount of that general manager post, so obviously they will just consider the paying capability or the rate that is basically prevailing in this industry, means what other companies are giving at the same post, that should also be taken care of by the human resource manager or by the organization while fixing the compensation structure for the employee. So, going rate is all about, in totality we can say that the prevailing rate in the industry, means being a company you just consider the other company's strategy or paying capability, means what they are paying at the same post or at to the different positions and the different jobs available in the company. So, just should be taken care of this particular component too. And the third one is productivity. Productivity is, means if the company is able to achieve a good sustainability or a good ratio of profit, or able to achieve the objective that the company has set out. So, if the productivity is higher, obviously that productivity or that higher ratio of profit should be distributed or should also be availed by the employees in the organization. So, it is all about based on the financial capability of the company, means if the company is able to achieve the financial basically is financially sound and able to achieve that ratio of profit. So, obviously that employees are also eligible to get good compensation from the organization. And the next one is cost of living. Cost of living is all about like what means in which area or in which city an employee is living. Suppose if an employee, because nowadays every organization is going to be multinational, so their employees are working at different places too, and because those people are living in different areas. Like if an employee is living in metro cities, so obviously the cost of living means cost of survival, like the rental accommodation, the goods purchasing, and the transportation availability of transportation. So, all cost all will basically all will be available at a costlier rate. So, obviously the cost of living is higher in metro cities as comparison to non-metro cities. So, that should also be taken care of by a human resource manager while determining the compensation, means in which city an employee is basically living, and according to that they just fix out the compensation. And the next the last one is labor union. Labor union is all about an association of workers which works on for the welfare of the workers and the employees. So, if labor union or the member of labor union are expecting the type of compensation, according to that the company should also taken care of, because they are basically the crucial one who somehow affect the productivity and the overall functioning of the organization. So, while fixing the compensation or determining the compensation amount for the employees, their expectations and their demand should also be taken care of by the organization while determining the remuneration for the employees. So, these are basically some of the factors, and these factors are divided into two, internal and external. Internal factors are like ability to pay and the business strategy, job evaluation, performance appraisal and the employee himself and herself, and the external factor we would talk about the labor market, going rate, productivity, cost of living and labor union. Now, move to the next slide or next topic, that is recent trends in compensation management. So, these are basically the recent trends, and you must have heard in your house, in your circle, in your colleague circle, that these are the things that are basically given, that are being given by the organization nowadays, like the trends like shift in incentives to group or team incentives rather than individual based, like nowadays business activities or business business activities are basically complex. So, for performance of those complex activities, the organization basically forms certain teams or groups. So, rewards should be basically introduced on the basis of the performance of the group member or the team, and if the team basically performs well, so all the member of that group or that team are eligible to get the benefit or the incentive. So, there is basically the term or the recent trend in terms of incentives, performance incentives, commission, performance payment and performance bonuses, means they should also, these are basically introduced by the human resource manager or by the organization in terms of the compensation nowadays, and these are basically given not on individual basis, these are basically provided in a team, so that all the members of that particular team or group work in a better way, and that will give basically more productivity to the organization. The next one is soft furnishing allowances nowadays be given to the employees, like purchase of curtain, carpets, cutlery, crockery, and conveyance is also an area, and conveyances also provide allowances are also provided by the organization nowadays, and companies now encourages their employees to raise their living of standards. So, they just provide the facility to the employees that they just buy the cars through hire and purchase schemes, and the installment are paid by the company. 2 or 4 wheelers loan are more common in practices. Medical benefits are liberally available with tie up with insurance company and hospitals in many cases, means nowadays medical facilities are being given by the organization either in cash form or either in non-cash form, like if they the hospitals or the insurance companies are tie up with the company. So, in that hospitals the employees can be get that facility without paying any cash, and if that hospital and if the available hospitals are not in the network list of the company, so the employee just pay out the cost of the overall treatment, and that cost and the total amount will be reimbursed later after claiming or after submitting all the documents related to that particular treatment. So, it is also one of the important trend. The next one is nowadays companies are now sponsoring some of the employees to go for higher education, and by doing so they are also providing they are giving some leave facility, and they are also giving some loan facility to them, so that the employees can enhance their skill, and after completion of that particular course they just give their productivity in the organization. Reimbursement of books, periodicals, newspaper, journals, these are the payment of these printed articles are also reimbursed by the organization for inculcating the sense of reading habit, reading, and that will obviously somehow helps in enhancing the skill of the members. Next one is club membership. Means if employees are going outside, so they if they are having a club membership of tie up with the company, so they can get facility of that get facility at that location. Soft loans for the purchase of furniture, appliances, computers are also extended. Housing loans or interest subsidy, means housing loans facility are also provided by the employer at a subsidized rate, and it is most common practices, or basically it is provided in the same manner to all the employees, and we can say that these are the common trends now offered by the companies. And maternity leave, long term paternity leave, part time flexi time employment options are also now given by the organization for giving a sense of association or giving a sense of what we can say that like you are just part and parcel for the organization, so that we are giving you that much of benefits so that you can continue your services after completion or after bearing your responsibility, your personal responsibilities. And the senior executives obviously share means we can say that EUSP means employee stock option plan are also offered by the company nowadays, means the stocks and the shares are available or provided by the employees too at a subsidized rate, means it is also one of the facility given to the employees that they can buy the share of a particular company, means in which they are working, they can buy the share of those companies at a subsidized rate. So, it is also one of the important trade nowadays which are used under compensation. Higher annual increments, obviously it is the organization is not bound to give increments in the salary of the employees, but in order to motivate, because the one of the important function of human resource is what procurement, development and maintenance. So, how the organization will maintain the services of the employees by giving different benefits, by introduction of different benefits time to time. So, annual increments is also one of them. So, if the organization is saying that the organization is giving annual increment to his or her salary, so obviously they feel motivated, and obviously they will think that they will be continued with that organization for a longer time period, and somehow that will save the help the organization in saving the cost. And personalized services out of basket of option means as per the expertise or as per the capability of the individual, some personalized services options can also be offered to the employees. So, these are basically some of the references you can just go through if you want to get more information about the given topic. That is all in this video lecture. I hope you will like this video. Thank you, students.